Hey traders, it's the Cowboy here. Welcome to another episode of Bitcoin and Ethereum Elliott wave analysis. It's Saturday morning here in Chicago. It's about 9:30, and we're going to do this episode a little bit different than some of these other ones. So I'm not going to do a slide presentation. We're going to go more on a kind of a free discussion and, with a deep dive down into my platform here in Motive Wave and just kind of look at some counts. And, we'll look at Ethereum, and I'll show you a trade we've done also in Algo last week. So let's begin and see where things kind of stand. I mean, Bitcoin, it's a pretty big mess. I want to see what Elliott Wave wants to say about it, but so far, we haven't really gone much. I mean, you look back at the beginning of the year, February, March, and we're pretty much at the same levels that we were back then. A little bit of a swing up into the 64, a nice drop back to 30, cut in half, then find its way somewhere back towards the middle. And, I think, this proves to me that Bitcoin is pretty resilient, and I think it wants to go up. Now, this drop that happened kind of in the same day that El Salvador went live with the Bitcoin wallets, it was a pretty nice drop of about almost $10,000 from 53 to 43,000. And, we're trying to recover. It's still kind of early and it's still kind of struggling. But I think, I don't think this drop is bearish for Bitcoin. I think, if anything that I'm kind of smelling and seeing on the altcoin market as well, I think this is a bullish development. And I'm trying to identify this as a second wave decline, either completed here at about 42,800 or maybe, a little bit more of a drop back towards 40,000. I would not want Bitcoin to drop a whole lot below 42 to 40,000, because by the moment that happens, I think we're coming into dangerous territory. And anything below 37, I think it's going to be a pretty solid signal that Bitcoin could return to new lows and go back towards 20,000. So I really need these levels here to hold in case this wave 2 is not fully complete yet. But I might have a hunch here that it's completed. So, we actually bullish in our program. We kind of entered about 45,000 last night. And, I have my stops here below this kind of 42,800 low, below this 43. I'm not giving it too much room into this trade, and I'm hoping I can take this back above 53,000. Now, we know that the month of September, it's, regarding seasonality, it's a pretty bad month. It kind of lived up to its expectation by this massive drop of about $10,000, but we're still very, very early. We're just a couple of weeks here in the month of September. So the price section, it's it's a little bit sloppy, right? It's not you do have a nice impulse out of these lows. I think it's hard to kind of count this corrective, no matter how you look at it. It's just looks much more cleaner as an impulse. Now, if it's an impulse, it's either a wave A of these lows or it's a wave 1. And, you can kind of go both ways about it, but doesn't matter. I think it still kind of calls for a move above 53,000 based on this impulsive scenario. So if it's a return to the larger, let's say, primary third wave, and that's a 1, we're getting a 2, that means that we're going to kind of slowly turn back from here, pass above 53, and begin the larger third wave advance, right? So you're going to go in a 1, 2, and it's nice because we kind of come back and retested this important level at about 42,800 that got tested several times back in January, and then you've had a couple of swings here in March, and then back in somewhere in June, and it's been holding well on the way back. So whatever was nice resistance now becomes support, and so far I think we're getting a pretty nice bounce out of here. But the idea for the trajectory moving forward would be that's a wave 1, that's a wave 2, and then we're going to start to kind of push out of here and begin our ascent into this larger third wave. Again, I'm willing to give this second wave a little bit more room to the downside, but not much more below this 37. I think, again, that's an important key zone to any move to the downside. I'm going to be watching this kind of 618, as a kind of an ultimate level, but hopefully we don't have to get all the way back there. So then we would start this larger third wave. This will take us, above this $65,000 high, maybe move towards 100,000 before a fourth wave and then a fifth wave begins. Of a larger wave 1, right, of this kind of larger third wave primary to the upside. So as you can notice here, I'm counting this as my preferred interpretation as being a second wave in Bitcoin, not being a fourth wave. All right, I think it just kind of fits better into the whole, narrative where we are in the cycle, and combined with a lot of other, indicators and everything that's kind of on chain and the way things look. I think we're kind of ready to move in a much larger advance. I think an ETF is not far. Maybe we're going to get it this winter, maybe before the end of the year, and that could be the catalyst for a much larger move to the upside. So that's why I kind of prefer to have this as a second wave. Now, you can look at it as a fourth as well. The implication is still, a move to the upside, hopefully towards 100,000, and then we'll see what happens once we get there. I don't think at the moment is that important, where we actually are in a kind of larger scheme. So, and then, this also depends on, how much, how long is your time viewing Bitcoin? Are you looking forward to the next 2-3 years? Are you looking forward to the next 10 years, right? Because then you can come up with all kind of scenarios where you could be. But I think it's a lot of speculation, and it's not necessarily worth it to kind of what happens here. So near term, I think we're going to kind of push higher, and I'm watching if this is a second wave terminated here, or if a pullback still happens. The other count is that's a little bit more bearish, right? You guys are familiar with this one, is that this was actually a 5-wave decline in this wave A, and then we're monitoring for the possibility of this being a B wave and a much larger decline kind of starting. Now, the arguments against it are the fact that this is an impulsive move, and it's hard for me to consider this a B wave. Now, market can play tricks, and you can kind of start to sell off from here, but it's not my preferred scenario. My preferred is that if it is a corrective move, this is just wave A of that correction. So that's an A. We're probably going to do like a B wave, come back towards those 37 levels, and then push back higher in the C wave of this B, and then you're going to sell off in the C wave. Now, the problem with that is that this is going to start to kind of look quite disproportionate with this A wave. It's still fine, but you would kind of have to start selling off in this B wave a little bit deeper, just to kind of get it more of a proportionate look back into the 618, then do a very short C wave, and then sell off in this larger C of this a bigger wave too. So I'm still kind of monitoring this. What would kind of tell me that this B wave is in trouble is definitely a move above this kind of these highs back in here, right? This is about 59,500. If we're starting to get above that 60K level, I think that the likelihood of this being a B wave is greatly diminished, and we're probably going to be on our way to new all-time highs by the time we're kind of breaking those levels. I'm also watching this from the perspective of this becoming a shoulders, and just going to kind of grab my marker in here, see if I can do that right away. And where this is kind of a rounding bottom in here, and then you have a little bit of a left shoulder, and as we're kind of climbing back up higher, we're going to build a right shoulder back into these levels, right? Something is going to happen with the move. Maybe it's going to just kind of extend sideways a little bit more, and then once this kind of high here gets established a little bit, right, once we're forming this right shoulder, then we're going to start to burst out of here and move much higher. So this move can still take, let's say, a couple of months, maybe September, the month of September, the month of October, right, before we kind of create this right shoulder, and then as we're approaching the end of the year, we can kind of start to do that breakout in the month of December. That's usually a pretty good month for cryptos in general, and we can kind of burst out of there towards 100,000. So just in terms of a more of a classical technical analysis, when you're watching the pattern in front of you and you're trying to see what would happen in case of an explosion higher, kind of how you would build a ramp for that, and that's kind of how I see it happening moving forward. So that's kind of what I have in Bitcoin. I mean, it's the moving averages in here continue to look pretty good. I mean, we crossed over on the bearish side on that dead cross, and now we're starting to approach this golden cross, right, where 50 moves above the 200-day. And right now the price is kind of supported, even on a sell-off. You're kind of toying with this 200-day moving average, but you're supported by the 50, and you're below the 21. So you're pretty much in a very strong pinch, in a very strong kind of converging of the moving averages in here. And this could still take a little while to unfold, and that's why I'm thinking we could be moving a little bit more sideways. The good news is that the more this happens and the volatility starts to contract, the more you're going to get an explosion out of here, right? We don't know exactly which way it's going to go, But the likelihood that a pretty strong move in Bitcoin is coming, I think the more we spend time converging here, it's going to be likely that that's going to happen, like that explosion, it's going to come. And for right now, the 20-day moving average is pretty flat. So you're in a pretty much trendless market ever since it's kind of starting to slope sideways. I've talked about this in numerous videos before as well, that, Bitcoin, it's not going to give up, this rise in price so easily, right? It's going to try to fight around it for a little bit of time. And sure enough, we kind of broke below it. We're coming back and retesting it. So right now, we're just kind of, going nowhere. Right, we're pretty much flat since March, May, February of this year. So there's really a directionless market. We kind of have to start to get out of here, right, and kind of establish a little bit of a trending move above this moving averages to get more confidence that a new trend is actually starting. And I think maybe a bunch of institutions and large players into the field are kind of waiting for the signals. Remember, these guys are not getting in like a smaller retail trader, right? When they kind of start to deploy funds, they need a little bit more confirmation. They need a little bit more of a market that's actually starting to move, because nobody really wants to have their money stuck there for, who knows, 5-6 months. They could probably be better put to use somewhere else, right? Or have it somewhere where it kind of stays safe without taking that risk. And then when you see that the market actually starts to break and move and you're starting to trend on the 20-day moving average, right? The price kind of confirms it, then those funds get deployed and then you're starting to move and you start to trend upwards like that again. But until then, we're still just in that waiting period. Now, on the kind of the empty charts in here, on the on the candlestick patterns, things still look a little bit confusing, I would say. I mean, I would go to a weekly chart and just kind of show you that you had a bit of quite a bit of loss of momentum as we were coming up into this high, right? And you could see, nice small candle, then, more aggressive to the upside, and then the size of the candle started to diminish. And I talked about this, in the pro room almost every single day into our videos, as we're kind of losing momentum, as this move kind of starts to look a little bit like this one back in here, right? Where you're getting, larger advances, but then the move's kind of starting to slow down, and then you're getting a bit of a sell-off. Now, the deal about the sell-off is that it needs to have a continuation lower to have any validity to it, right? If this thing, let's say, over the course of by the time this week ends, or over the course of the next week, if we're kind of starting to stall in here and maybe even do a bullish engulfing, that means that that's a failed pattern and you're kind of ready to move to the upside. So I'll be watching, what happens over the next couple of weeks and kind of how these candles form. And, I'll make sure to kind of keep you guys updated, in 2 weeks when the next video will come out. But until then, I'm still kind of cautious. I'm positioning for a bullish move, but so far this is a clean kind of bearish move from this highs. Now, if I go to a daily chart, you can see, actually even here, right, where I'm watching some of these levels that are very important, this kind of demand zones, supply zones and demand zones, where, you're actually seeing a lot of fight from the market, and some levels that the market has memory of, just the typical, resistance and support. And, we're watching how the price kind of reacts into this level. So as you're coming down, you're obviously going to bounce at these levels. As you're going up, you're going to hit your head above some of these resistance levels. So we're fighting between these two zones, and we'll see. The moment we start to crack above here, that's going to be, start to be a pretty good signal that things are going to start to break to the upside. If we're kind of breaking below these levels, things are going to start to look kind of ugly, and then you can actually look to the next zone. It's probably going to be somewhere up into these levels. You can see that the biggest concentration of rejections of daily closes, kind of happen around this, let's say 34 to 35K level, right in there, right? So that would be the next level to watch in case we're going to get a break through this zone. So you can see, I'm not using only Elliott wave in my analysis. It's my primary interpretation, and that kind of helps us stay on the right direction and kind of have a pretty solid outlook on where the market is. But you kind of have to combine this with a lot of other technical indicators to just kind of, help you out, overall where some of these levels are. And you're kind of throwing some fibs at it and some zones. And when you have big confluences, that's where the market is kind of likely to respond from those levels. So You know, either way, I'm very impressed with the fact that you've rallied from this 30K level, you know, back to 50. I think this was an important indication that this market is still fairly solid. And remember, everybody was very afraid of this being you know, like an inverted, like a head and shoulder formation. This was the left shoulder, this was the right shoulder. The sentiment was extremely negative as we were approaching again these lows. And you know, the talks out there, I mean, I actually have a few slides saved from some of the newspapers and from some of the you know, websites that are kind of famous out there for providing you know, information regarding Bitcoin, Ethereum, cryptos. And you know, some of the blog posts were super bearish as we were coming up into this 30K level. And you know, when sentiment moves to one extreme, you know, so much, you're likely going to get a bounce, and you know, that's kind of what happened. You know, I'm not saying the sentiment is extremely bullish just yet. I couldn't necessarily say that. I mean, you could feel that it kind of started to be with the El Salvador news, and you know, the market kind of crashed a little bit on that. But you know, other than that, I think we're pretty much flat on it, right? There's kind of a you know, kind of wait and see mode out there regarding Bitcoin. If anything, I think more of the concentration lately is towards the alts, which has actually started to you know, a lot of them to kind of move to new all-time highs, and you know, quite a few of these ones like Solana and ADA and you know, Algo and some of these other ones really pushed higher. You know, I think Luna was the other one, and we're watching all of these. I mean, you can see back in here I have a you know, a list of you know, altcoins that we're watching back in here into some of these kind of larger caps. I have a big list of about 37 mid caps in here that we're kind of tracking. I have all the counts in the Motivate software, so you know, my clients, my subscribers get access to them, you know, anytime they want, or you know, I post them out there, and we kind of do you know, daily videos on that as well. And then I have, you know, some of the small caps in here that I'm watching, you know, see kind of how they move, right? We have about 40 of them. And then these are a bunch of them that I kind of have in my own portfolio as well here to the left. So, you know, we're kind of constantly monitoring this crypto field to see kind of where the opportunities are. And, you know, let's jump over to Ethereum and take a look at that. I think this is, you know, to me it looks better as being a second wave. I mean, you could argue that it's a fourth. You know, I don't know. I think, I mean, just if you jump over to a very simple arithmetic scale, I mean, the size of this pullback and down here into the 618 tells me that this very likely could be a second wave in Ethereum, and we're just building wave one of this kind of larger third wave advance. And you know, maybe we're going to get a bit of a pullback, but then, you know, that larger third of a third could start maybe towards the end of the year. So I'm still kind of remaining on that you know, narrative that this is possibly a you know, a second wave pullback. So on the smaller time frame, you know, if you look at Ethereum, you know, I have it here as a fourth as well. You can see the alternate as a wave one. And if you're interested in kind of how that count looks in terms of being a fourth wave or a second, this is kind of how I have it. And an ABC here for a W, and then you have this ABCDE in a triangle. Then you drop down in this wave A, you go up in B, and then you drop down in the C wave and completes a WXY formation that could be either a fourth wave or a second. And then you're kind of pushing up in this wave one. Nice impulse. Let's say, you know, this was a fourth wave up in fifth, and then now either this is a second wave completed back to this area of support, or it's still in progress a little bit lower, and then you're going to kind of turn back and move and start to attack 7, 8, 9,000 in Ethereum, let's say, over the winter. So that's kind of my you know, my game plan in Ethereum. I haven't been touching Ethereum, trading it much. You know, I like some of these other altcoins, but you know, I think Ethereum still remains you know, fairly positive. I think it still have to resolve some of these issues with the large fees that it has. You know, when you move funds around, when you use your wallets, you know, when you do DeFi and you're trying to get coins in and out of some of these wallets, they're quite expensive. So maybe that's why it's kind of taking a breather, and some of these other protocols are kind of taking charge. But I still remain bullish longer term Ethereum. I hold a pretty good position, and you know, I'm waiting for better levels to maybe add to it. But for right now, I think you know, I'm pretty okay with just kind of letting it do its thing and just you know, kind of see where we go from here. In terms of the, you know, the candlestick patterns, you know, things look I mean, pretty okay. We've gotten a pretty good rejection out of here, so it doesn't convince me that that's a fully bearish, the start of a new bearish trend. If you can see a bunch of these alts actually, after this candle happened, a lot of them that actually pulled out of here and starting to make new all-time highs. And I can run to plenty of examples. I've actually done a video just on that a few days ago into the pro room, where I went through like 20 or 30 alts, and all of them kind of had the similar look on the drop, and then quite a few of them have made new all-time highs above these levels. So I'm expecting something similar to happen in Ethereum as well, and just a return to above this 4K level and a continuation higher. So yeah, that's kind of what I see in Ethereum. In terms of the moving averages, maybe look a little bit better. The market is still trending in here, right? I mean, you got a nice support here at 50, right? Just a clean response. So that's what I mean when you look at Confluence, right? You can see, big horizontal support. You can see the 50-day moving average, and this is where you can have some of your bids, and you can just kind of wait on the market to kind of hit those levels, or even hit them at the market as the market sells off, right? Because those are pretty good bounce zones, even bounce zones, even for a shorter term trade. But the 20-day right now, it's at about 24.88. We'll see if it's going to get tested. It's quite far down below, and this market is a little bit better trending than Bitcoin at the moment. So let me talk to you a little bit about algo, and we've done a pretty cool trade in here. I mean, we've done I've alerted our pro members about this trade, this particular. Listen, the guys in my room, they're super good about picking a lot of good coins, and I can't get involved in a lot of them myself. Is just because you only have so many funds to kind of go around, and you don't want to spread your risk, so aggressively to a lot, because they kind of move in a pretty strong correlation, right? But the one that I picked personally was algo, and I got asked like, what's the reasons why you kind of picked that, and it's because I've liked the way that kind of the count looked, and we looked at this back in May. I've actually been tracking it for way longer before that, but that's kind of when I started to introduce it into our Motivate software and to our pro members. And I was watching this 1-2-1-2 in the development, and I starting to get a little bit more confidence that it's probably going to push to the upside, noticing that Ethereum is pushing higher, a bunch of these alts were pushing higher, and algo was kind of lagging. And, by the time it kind of confirmed that we've had a low in here, right, to this kind of triple bottom, and it's starting to kind of move out of here, I started to get confident that, it's possibly this move, has a lot of fuel behind it, and it should push higher, towards, above this $2 level. I don't know what this high was, but I think, if I look back, right, it was about 184. So at about 113, I posted out there, even in the public room, we were talking about it, and I said, I think I'm going to take some of my funds out of Tezos, and I think I sold some Storage and a couple of other things, and I put everything into algo, because I thought that it's the one that kind of gets the next move, and we were nicely rewarded to this breakout. Almost it went to about I think the high was 243 or something like that, and we're still long in it, but I took a little bit of a chunk out of there around $2.30, right? I just placed a limit order into the market, and to me this was a nice kind of third wave advance, and I said it's time to kind of take some profits. Now I don't want to let it run, and maybe it's going to get towards $3, $4, maybe even towards the top of this channel in this larger third wave. Now it's going to take a little bit of while until that happens, but I think we're pretty well positioned, and I'll continue to kind of watch it. But that's kind of the type of things that we do, and this was a nice 100% move, and I mean, you can chase and try to squeeze maybe a 5 to 10% out of some of these coins through these moves, but the idea is that when you have conviction in a trade, right, you kind of have to go for it, and use the Elliott wave to your advantage. Use some of these levels to confirm. Try to read into the price section kind of how it behaves, and then buy in these pullbacks. And once the market starts to tell you that, hey, I think I'm ready to move, then don't be afraid to buy it, and obviously control your risk, know exactly where you're wrong, and then also don't be afraid to take some profits on the way up. But so this is this is a thing. The other one that we're watching was Stellar. I think this one, it's still it's still a little bit sluggish in here. I think it's still kind of got some issues with the XRP and some of these the narratives out there, but it's a pretty solid project, and I still remain pretty long this one, and I think it's probably going to get above 65 as soon as we're kind of starting to clear. Maybe this is a flat move in here, looks like an ABC, and then once you get back above 40 again, I think you can move into a larger, it actually could be a 1, 2, and then you can actually push back towards 80 cents. So you can actually double from here easily, just like algo happened. So anyway, I talk about this all the time. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time in the YouTube videos. I'm trying to keep them under 30 minutes, but every single day I do videos for the Pro Room where we discuss alts, we talked about stocks, and we talk about, sometimes there's something interesting in the currency market, in the bond market, in the oil, in the gold. But there's plenty of activity happening every single day, and I'm trying to give all the subscribers a very wide view of what happens in the macro, and then combine that with crypto, right? So we don't want to live in that crypto bubble and vacuum. We wanted to have this kind of larger market awareness about what happens on the globe and what happens overall, and how can you kind of position yourself and take advantage of trends. In the end, it's all about this and kind of where the money flows. You can notice there is a big move towards uranium, and we have some positions on that. Oil, I still think it's a pretty solid market to be involved in. There is, the base metals are doing great as well. We've got some, options and, different stocks that we get involved in. So, there's a lot of activity happening on there. I can't talk about it on YouTube as much, but even if you come into the public channel, sometimes I try to put some stuff out there. I'm not very active because the Pro Room just keeps me so busy. Listen guys, again, I really want to thank you for watching this video. I appreciate you being here, every couple of weeks or maybe every week if I'm trying to put something out there. And don't forget to subscribe and like, and come visit us, give us a try, and then if not, I'll see you back here as soon as possible. But again, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.